Welcome back to another Productivity Like a Pro podcast episode today with my dear friend, Paco Cantero, our co-founder, and our dear members inside the chat.
Paperless Movement, your productivity, your way.
Today we will talk about shallow versus deep work. A very interesting topic, I think, where we move from the information world into the action world. And let's now dive into this, why it's crucial to differentiate between shallow and deep work. That's a lot of revelations coming from our inner circle members as well when we go through their days, how they structure their days and so on, and realizing that you can actually structure your day into shallow and deep work batch blocks you work in. That changed for so many people so much, right, Paco?
Yes, because I think that both types of work are pretty important. I would say it's crucial. And I think that many people tend to speak about shallow work kind of disrespectful, I would say. Okay, it's like things that doesn't matter. It's just the deep work that matters. Also encouraged by productivity gurus and people who are dedicated to this world of productivity, who tend to say that, well, deep work is what matters and the rest is nonsense. And I fully disagree. I think that both are important. I wouldn't say that shallow work is more important than deep work. I think that both are different types of work, and that doesn't mean that one needs to be better than the other. It's just to clearly identify them so that you can better create a schedule for each day. I think that that's the most important thing, that differentiating between these types of work helps you to be much more productive, okay, without losing anything in the way, okay, because I think that that's something important. We don't want to miss things while we are working daily, and by creating the right schedule day by day, I think that you can perfectly give a structure, and the moment that you have created a certain level of structure to your daily work, it's much easier to deal with, for example, unexpected events, okay, because you just need to compare the things that you have previously planned versus the things that have emerged out of nowhere, out of the blue. And then you end every day being 100% sure that you have done your best based on the circumstances that you have done, that usually for busy professionals are constantly changing, okay? Because we are not people who are there inside a laboratory, with everything perfectly structure, organized, and having full control of that. That's not the case of most of the busy professionals. We are constantly suffering interruptions, unexpected events, things that we haven't estimated accordingly, and then we got delays. Well, many things. It's quite tough to work nowadays. And this is what iCore provides, a structure that is such a flexible methodology that allows you to work with the current workload. And I think that that's one of the most important features talking about iCore.
I just want to say again the differentiation that you talked about between shallow work, that people disrespect shallow work. If you follow me on X, then you might see that I post some quotes every day out of the Paperless Movement and the iCore. And there I shared one of our quotes called, "Shallow work keeps the lights on, but deep work is where you build the powerhouse." And I think that represents very good that both is needed in order to move forward. And Michael said in the chat, actually, reactive work versus creative work. And I'm not so sure if this applies to the shallow work, because reactive work to me is no shallow work. Reactive work is exactly that somebody comes in and gives you some work that wasn't planned, and you're reacting to something that you weren't planning in the morning to do. So sometimes you have urgent tasks that appear out of nowhere that you have to tackle. And again, our definition of urgent is pretty clear. It needs to impact the business in some way or form. So it's much more important above everything that you did before or have planned for that day. Everything else can wait until the next planning phase in the next week. And that's really this clarification not only helps yourself to plan your day and whole week better, but also to tell your coworkers that you are focusing on that. That's something that we agreed in the beginning of the week, right? Now I'm in my shallow work phase and I'm going through the emails right now. So you can start communicating that you have a specific time in the day where you're processing emails. So if they keep calling you and asking for a reply to something they send, then they should get used to these routines that you have in place every day where you process these messages. And the more you do this and the more you stick to your own schedule for this, the more other people will also learn that you will get back to their answers. They don't have to worry. They will calm down because they can focus on other work in the meantime, but they can be sure that they get a reply eventually. So you see, Paco, I mixed up several things that apply to the shallow versus deep work. I mentioned routines there. We talked about weekly goals and daily highlights. All this comes into play when it comes to this, right?
Yeah, because the important thing here is to understand that work is something that you need to do, okay? It's something that it's mandatory, because if it's not mandatory, then forget about it, okay? Don't plan, don't think about it. Work, it doesn't matter if it's deep work or shallow work, are things that need to be done, okay? Tasks that you need to take care of them, no matter, because, for instance, if I forget about the typical shallow work, that it's all the accounting, invoices, or whatever to help financial department or administration department to do their work, that's important. If I don't do that work, it will be a mess, okay? Especially when you are dealing with a lot of volume, you know? And in my case, well, in our case, we are talking about thousands of different invoices per week. So imagine if you don't pay attention to that, the huge mess that you can cause to the company, to the business, to other co-workers, to other departments, and at the end, everything matters, okay? Maybe you are working towards a quarterly goal that you have previously set up, and you forget about all the shallow work because of that, then you will destroy your business for sure, okay? So it's the balance, again, what matters, because just the opposite, if you are just thinking about shallow work and you don't do any deep work at all for weeks, then again, you're into trouble. So I think that we need to interiorize that this is not reactive versus proactive. This is not about things that you can do or not do at all. It's about things that needs to get done. But the point is that how you approach those tasks are completely different, okay? For instance, talking about deep work, you need a fresh mind. You need to be at a top level. Talking about energy, you need to have a big or long time slot, okay? Deep work should be dedicated at least for 1 hour as a minimum, I would say, up to 3 or 4 hours, depending on how you are able to be focusing, just going really deep into just one thing, being laser focused and dedicate all your energy to that. And shallow work is just the opposite, okay? You don't need to be at a top level of energy. Maybe you don't need huge time slot. For instance, talking about the speedies, which are tasks under 15 minutes, you can create a block of 20 minutes and you can get rid of many speedies. For instance, that's a lot of shallow work. In my case, for instance, close to 200 speedies per week. Imagine if I don't do that, then it's a mess. The moment that I miss 2 weeks, I have 400 items there waiting to get done. And above that, besides, a lot of people that could be waiting for my reply, for instance. So the system, okay, the whole system of the company gets stuck, and then you are not moving, helping to move the system on a daily basis, because that's the important thing. The moment that you have created a structure between deep work and shallow work, everything should run smoothly. Not only how you work, how you structure your days, but the whole company, the whole department, the whole team, okay? Because the moment that everyone understands these subtleties and they give a structure to their days, then they will be much more productive for sure, okay? I think that also reduces the anxiety, because, for instance, talking about shallow work, we are talking about a lot of items, okay? A lot of tasks. And whereas when we are talking about deep work, maybe we are talking about one task that requires a lot of time, and then it's kind of overwhelming too. So knowing how to tackle on a daily basis the different type of works, you end the day with the sensation that you have evolved, okay? You have keep running the system without any problem, without suffering, because everything is perfectly scheduled. And the moment that you start to tackle those different type of works, you see that you are moving forward, okay, that you are getting closer to your goals, that a lot of shallow work is up to date, okay? I think that the moment that you see that there are a lot of delays, talking, for instance, about shallow work, that you say, man, I've been dealing with all these invoices for 2 weeks and you get rid of them, the sensation of release, then why not creating that type of routine where you are able to tackle them and then everything is up to date? I think that when your shallow work is up to date, that reinforces the energy and the motivation to work into the deep work much better, because I know that everything is up to date, and I know that as I'm working in the deep work mode, okay, I know that I'm moving towards my goal, because the moment that you don't have your shallow work up to date, that hurts a lot your approach when you start doing your deep work, okay, because subconsciously you know that there are things pending. That's one of the important things of having a proper system, a productivity system implemented, that you know that everything is taken care by itself. And that's pretty important, because that's a way that you can release all your subconscious and your conscious to go all in into your deep work. So that combination is pretty important. And for me, one technique that I do many times is the moment that I don't feel at a top level of energy, no matter if it's even a day, because we are not robots at this moment, okay? We are human beings, and maybe sometimes we don't feel at a full energy level. Then what I do is, let's go the whole day talking about being focused on shallow work, because my level of energy is the one that I got. So I put everything into date, and then the day after I can go full in, really motivated, because the moment that things are up to date and you are covering your expectations, your schedules, your deadlines, I think that that's kind of motivational, okay? Yeah. At least for me, it's something that gives me the power to tackle much better all the deep work, and no matter what happens during the day.
100%. And there's a important difference between what you just lastly mentioned, is the that you do a whole day of shallow work so you can focus on deep work on the next day. It's like the feeling that you cleaned up the room, and while you're cleaning up the room, your brain gets sorted as well, and then you have a complete different of motivation to sit down and work. The thing is, there is many people who procrastinate the actual work by doing the shallow work then. So me being a student, I prefer to clean up the room the 10th times instead of writing my essay or something like that. This changed in the meantime, obviously, but this is something that is real, and it's so easy to fall into this trap again, that you keep doing shallow work every day, and then in the end of the week you have the feeling, what have I accomplished? So it's really crucial to identify the shallow work and know, not only having a feeling there's something that I should do, and you start going down several rabbit holes into shallow work, and then you see email inbox and then, oh, I could follow up there, and then you move on the deep work. There are two reasons for that. First of all, you have no understanding of all the shallow work that you have to do. So there's no way to plan it out into batches. And then there's no way to understand the actual important work that you need to accomplish this week in order to move the whole business forward, move the project towards the goals, and so on. And that's really important, I think, to differentiate there. And I just want to go through the different chat messages as well from the members. Before going into this, I just want to mention in ICOR, we also differentiate between shallow thinking and deep thinking, which is shallow knowledge and deep knowledge in our systems. And there again, it's not the same, and you cannot compare it with the shallow work and deep work directly. But what you can compare is that you have to understand there are different types of information, as well as different types of actions that you need to do. And by realizing and identifying these different types, you will be able to leverage tools in a completely different way. You might start using several tools for the specific types of information and actions that you're using. And this is the clarity that our members usually get out of the ICOR framework, starting thinking about the different tools they use, then going through the ICOR journey, understanding the differences between shallow and deep knowledge and work. And this is the main clarity that you get out of this system that you're building there. So let's go through. Yeah, Paco?
Before moving on to the questions, I would like to say something related to procrastination, because I know that sometimes deep work is tough, okay, because it requires to be fully concentrated into something. Maybe you need to deal with something that it's complicated, that is not clear for you, the actions, or maybe you can feel, that sense of overwhelming because it's a huge challenge. And for that, the thing that I always do is exactly the same, is splitting into pieces the deep work, okay? Yeah. Create small pieces that maybe just take you, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, instead of that, big slot of 3 hours, okay, that can make you feel overwhelmed because it's a huge challenge, especially when you are not in the best energy level possible. And the moment that you reduce, because procrastination, it's being studied, and it's just a matter of starting. So if you create small pieces and just start working for 10, 15 minutes, you will see that it's much easier to move forward and to achieve maybe 1, 2, 3 hours. I think that the thing about the deep work and moving towards your goals and making your projects evolve is just a matter of just showing up every day, no matter if it's in the slot between, I would say, 30 minutes and 3 hours, but every day. Some days you will do 45 minutes. Try to always, okay, be as long as possible, okay? Try to force to those 2-3 hours. But just by showing up constantly, daily, without missing a day, I think that it's impossible not to move towards your goals and feel that sensation of fulfillment at the end of the week. And I think that that's the main purpose of this stuff, okay? The moment that you put your deep work on top of your calendar, and then you take your best energy level to perform at a peak level, I think that no matter the time that you dedicate, because also people think that deep work, it's a matter of dedicating a long time, and the moment that you are performing at a peak level, the outcomes that you can deliver in just 30 minutes are amazing. It's brilliant work that will resonate to the people, even to yourself. So I wouldn't think in a negative point of view talking about the amount of time that you dedicate, because the quality of the energy and the quality of your brain and how you think, your thinking process when you are dedicated to that type of job, I think that completely kills the concept of time. And that's something also that we should pay attention the moment that we want to differentiate between deep work and shallow work. It's not about the time length. It's about dedicating the right energy and more or less slots of time that you can change without any problem. Be flexible with yourself, because at the end, the moment that you create that structure, you will end up with a productive day for sure.
I think it's a very interesting topic as well to talk about. And we have here in the comments, just the comments that you referred to was from Volker. He said, guilty as charged when it comes to the procrastination, doing shallow work. Michael also said, it took me many years of doing shallow work, Tom. Very guilty here too. So that's the answer to that. But then David says, I have extreme ADHD and struggle with this. Can you speak about using Sansama and how you would suggest it? And Volker says, oh yes, Sansama, lifesaver. I want just to quickly talk about ADHD, and it's a bit of a tricky topic because you can offend many people out there if you talk about this. In my personal opinion, I always thought I have ADHD if I look at the definitions of this, because I get distracted very quickly. I can, in an instant, my thoughts flip over. Multitasking is just not a thing. But the question is, is it actually the system making you thinking this way and this anxiety and being anxious the whole day that, well, encourages this ADHD? Because after I'm implemented ICOR and I got more and more structure into my day, and I was already back in corporate, I got in control. I knew, and that's the deep work moment. And that's why, in my opinion, I know, Paco, you're not using this, but I always set up a timer. I say 1 hour deep work, and I set the timer to 1 hour. I'm not talking about Pomodoro, something we don't believe at all here, because 25 minutes, I just get started, right? So the deep work for me is really usually 3 hours, 4 hours. But I do the 1 hour timer. It puts on some kind of pressure to stay focused. I set up a timer and there's a time running, and now I'm thinking about nothing else. So that really helps me to get into the flow state. And no matter if a timer is running, it's not about tracking the time that I'm doing there. It's really about something that triggers me to stay focused. And this works all the time. When I say, okay, now I'm focusing on this task, and I had the feeling that I already got distracted with an email, I answered there, and I said, man, I lost already time this morning doing things that I shouldn't be doing. That's the moment I set up a timer and say, okay, now let's focus on this. And that keeps me focused. And the other thing is talking about structure and structure your day. That's something where Sansama comes into play. Maybe, Paco, you want to talk about this? It's just important to understand the difference, what many people confuse, even the gurus on YouTube keep saying it. There's a calendar and there's a task manager, and that's it. But there's so much more that we need to differentiate. There's a task manager, there's a calendar, there's a planner, and there's a project manager. And then we could even talk about knowledge management system, but let's stay in the action system. So the key difference here is really the planner versus calendar and planner versus task manager, because it gets confused with both of these things. So that's why we are using Todoist, Sansama, and ClickUp in combination in order to structure our day. And Paco surely can share example of his day, how we actually plan out the week on Sansama.
Yes, because I think that what we need is for our boundaries, okay? The moment that we create boundaries is the moment that we create a structure, because I think that freedom, okay, 100% freedom is chaotic the moment that you want to be productive, because it's not clear for you where you should be paying attention to. And that's where the planner comes into place, okay? Because in this case, there are many planners out there, but for us, Sansama is the best one, because they were, I would think that, close to pioneers, understanding that they were creating a times management tool, okay? Because that's what's a planner, okay? A planner is a tool that allows you to, the moment that is not clear for you, because you have suffered an interruption, because an unexpected event, because you get distracted, because, I don't know, so many things, you look there and it clearly tells you what needs to be done right now, okay? Because you have previously created that a schedule of things, okay? This is not about time blocking. If we understand time blocking as defining perfectly the hours, the starting hour and the ending hour of each time slot, because that's nonsense, okay? That's how you're gonna end up dedicating time to organize your whole day, and you will never do anything, okay? A planner and time block for us is creating sequences of time slots, okay, that you can perfectly manage, that they are not overwhelming at all. That's one of the beautiful things about the graphical user interface that Sansama brings to the table, because each time slot is represented by a block that is not overwhelming, okay? It's minimalist, I would say, okay? It's a minimalistic approach, talking about the whole tool, but here it's pretty straightforward, because you can change from just a week, so that you can more or less, yes, at a glance, to see if you get work overload or not at all, okay? You can perfectly balance the whole week, and you can do exactly the same the moment that you go into your daily view, okay? Also you have different views, 3 days, whatever you may consider at any moment, because that's the beautiful thing of times management. You need to think about the times that you're gonna dedicate to the things, and when you're gonna dedicate time to certain things. And that's what Sansama brings to the table, because, for instance, you can perfectly create time slot for every routine that you have, daily routines that we use constantly, because that's part of the core of any productivity system, like iCore, for instance. We got a daily routine, afternoon routine, and end of the day routine. Each of them represent a block. You can create a block for deep work, and you decide the project or the tasks that you're going to dedicate time to that deep work. Then you can dedicate another time block for whatever you may consider. Okay, the point is creating a structure for tasks that you consider that are similar. For instance, if you consider that all the speedies should be managed in a time slot, create it. Okay, if you want to create a time slot to email management, for instance, create it. Okay, you see that similar task talking about the level of energy or the amount of time that you want to dedicate to them, that sounds like a time slot. And that's what you do. You just move up and down time slots without worrying about the exact start the hour and the exact finish hour.
Yeah.
The point is that time management also involves things that you have with third parties. For instance, events. Okay, if you have meetings, they consume time, and that's why planners allow you to put events inside the planner, because you need to put them there, because those are what we call constraints in iCore, because you cannot do anything about them. You're not gonna miss a meeting, for instance. Then you can put your time slots, the ones that you have control over, based on those time slots of meetings that are restricted. Okay, so that you are perfectly managing your time and seeing what's doable or not. Because, for instance, imagine that you have 2 meetings and then you create a time slot with whatever you may consider. Let's say, put it easy, email management, for instance. You say, man, between these 2 meetings, am I able to really dedicate time to email management, or do I prefer to end all the meetings and then I will be fully focused on email management? Then what you see that the tool and this times management system is helping you to create those boundaries of the restrictions that time is intrinsically related to. And that's what brings reality. Okay, when you see that you have created a huge amount of time slots, you can clearly see that that's not doable. Okay, so then you can start planning and spreading the different slots throughout the week or throughout the next 3 days. And that's what we consider that a planner should be used for. And the point is that you cannot use a calendar for that. Okay, we have people who have tried to do that with Google Calendar, with all the fantastical whatever. A calendar shouldn't be used as a planner. Okay, we always recommend that a calendar is just for meetings, so that the moment that you look at your calendar, those are the mandatory time wasters, okay, or time consuming items, okay, the ones that you cannot avoid, so that just by looking at them, you can perfectly know the time restrictions that you have through the whole week or the time period that you may consider. And then based on that, it's much easier to plan, and especially if we split between shallow work and deep work, because at the end, time is what it is, a day is what it is, and no matter that you dedicate 8 or 10 times to work, with this system, everything will be planned correctly and consequently execute properly.
Yeah, I want to double down on this, as Michael also commented. Can too much shallow work lead to procrastination? Yes, because it is exhausting. And when you are in a bad place mentally, you postpone deep work. Then he keeps saying, so my guess is to limit the amount of shallow work you do per day. Just a thought. It's not just a thought. That's exactly how we teach it in the iCore journey when we talk about shallow work. And just to make things even more clear, as Paco described it here, and I mentioned Todoist, Sansama, and ClickUp. We are not using Sansama and bringing in all the tasks from Todoist, the shallow work, into Sansama. Instead, we create a block inside Sansama, which is the task in parentheses inside Sansama, as a routine. And in this routine, there are several things that we do in the routine. In the afternoon routine, for example, do shallow work, if you like. Shallow work mainly exists for us in Todoist. So therefore, I go to the task manager that tells me what to do. So in Sansama, I schedule out the batch working of shallow work, and then I expect going to the action system telling me what I actually need to do. So Sansama tells me when I do the shallow work, and the action system tells me what I have to do. If you have a lot of shallow work to do, then it makes no sense to move everything into your planner, because you just go there, and in the perfect world, you set up the task manager as well according to ICOR, and therefore you know perfectly what you should do with the highest priority first. And then you work in this time block, like 1 hour shallow work, 2 hour shallow, whatever you consider doing in this afternoon, you keep working until you run out of time. And this is what you achieved this day. But you always know that you tackle the first most important shallow things first. And then there's still something remaining that just moves on and fills up on the bottom with new things. So in this routine, you keep just working on these shallow items without managing these shallow items in a different system. That's why also in the morning routine, we, for example, have there manage the action system, right? So plan out Todoist, for example, or process Todoist, where we then go in the morning into Todoist and checking, okay, what is there? Let's organize. What do I want to tackle today? So you very quickly, with your high energy level in the morning, think about, okay, what do I want to tackle in this afternoon? Plan it out very quickly, which is really, if it is up to date, it's 2 minutes looking into Todoist, what is there, because if you do this on a daily basis, it's already up to date. And then in the afternoon routine, the moment you need to do the work, everything is already set up in the perfect manner. You start your routine, which means for us going to Todoist, checking shallow work, maybe in ClickUp there are items as well, but the focus is for us really in Todoist, as the ClickUp, at least for me, is deep work. Okay, all the tasks that are in ClickUp are to me deep work that usually take more than 15 minutes. So that's why ClickUp in my setup is connected to Sansama, bringing in the task from ClickUp to Sansama that I then also schedule during the week to have my daily highlights. And then therefore I see in the block what I'm doing in the deep work in the morning. And then that's something I can start focusing on the things on ClickUp. But even this would work without even connecting it. So that could be then the morning routine, doing deep work, which would for me mean go to ClickUp. Deep work means working according towards our goals and our projects. ClickUp, we had our agenda meeting, we planned out a week, so we know already what to work on. Therefore, I know in ClickUp exactly what I need to work on. So by separating the systems, I already separated the different work types, and I'm not even get distracted by any shallow work inside the other system.
Yes, and it's important to really understand the concepts behind, because, for instance, right now, many people are pretty happy because Todoist, for instance, has recently launched the calendar view, okay? And then we can see the owner telling us that we can use it to create, to use time blockings and this type of things. And the point is that the planner should be an independent tool, okay? Because the purpose, or the ultimate purpose, is just to have 6 or 7 slots, okay? Objects, items in the planner each day, because that's how you can have a clear vision of your priorities, of the things that you want to dedicate the time. The moment, for instance, imagine if I do that inside Todoist, that I got the speedies, everything. That's what happens to the people, you know, that they use task managers that hold all type. That's the first thing, okay? All type of tasks, no matter if it's a speedy, a task,
and even information, right? That's
correct.
And even information. We have this seen so many times that people also collect then all the ideas and things
then
they find on the web.
Chaotic, because you are dealing with hundreds of items, and that's when you start really procrastinating, because you are dedicating a lot of time to organizing. Okay, the ultimate purpose of ICOR is dedicate as least time as possible to organize and to plan, because you need to put things into action to complete the task, and then complete the projects, and then achieve your goals. So the more time you dedicate to organize, the less time you're gonna have to dedicate to get things done. And that's the important thing. That's why splitting the planner out of any other task management system, project management, because the planner manages the time, okay? And to manage 8 to 10 hours per day, or 12, I don't know, or 17, I don't care, okay? You cannot hundreds of items or dozens of items. No, it's something that quickly, as something unexpected pops up, you go there, you see your 6 items, and then you can clearly prioritize and say, no, well, this unexpected event can wait until tomorrow. Okay, put it tomorrow, and tomorrow you will organize that, and then you forget that unexpected event didn't create any interruption, didn't stop your flow, didn't stop your laser focus mind, okay? And that's important. That's why it's so important to differentiate. Exactly the same. The moment that you start merging things that are mandatory related to your time, for instance, meetings, or something that you have stated for yourself that should be mandatory for today. Imagine that you have a meeting and you need to prepare a presentation today so that tomorrow you can make that presentation. Then that's also mandatory. Then you start creating those boundaries of mandatory items for today. And that's the question. Whenever you face an item, you should quickly reply to yourself if you're going to tackle this today or not. Because if not, delay it, okay? Delay it and just leave the things that you consider that you would like to tackle, and then it's pretty easy. The moment that you have done that first distilling process or filtering out, you can clearly see if that's doable or not. People worry a lot about estimations and theoretical time length of tasks or items, but the moment that you are looking just with boundaries to the things that you have committed to yourself to do for today, you will quickly see if that's doable or not. And even you say, well, I can be even more ambitious, and then go to the things that you have delayed to some other day, maybe tomorrow, and then bring them here. And that's how you work with a planner. But the moment that you have only 6 to 8 items per day, if you need to start moving things around 18, 20 items from one day to another, then it's the moment that you're dedicating a lot of time to organization. You're wasting your time. In the middle of that organizational process, you're going to receive more unexpected events, more interruptions, and then you get into a loop of being unproductive that it doesn't make any sense. That's why we create those routines, okay? Because those routines condense all those items or shallow work that you need to constantly do every day. You should check your email. You should look at your project management to see if everything is up to date. You should tackle some speedies every day. That's a block, okay, a time slot that we call routine that take care of that, so that you don't need to be all the time and all day long organizing the things, because they are more or less organizing with this structure that is so simple: shallow work, routines, deep work, and that's it. And then anything you may consider that you should dedicate the time to also.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And I just want to, in the end of the session, I want to go through the chat again. As Michael says, can you do a video about this, Tom? I have never worked like that. Really interesting. I recommend you to go through the ICO journey again and go into the task management like a pro course, as we perfectly explain there, shallow versus deep work. If we don't explain it perfectly and it's so unclear, then please go to the comments below of the lessons and let us know there how we can further improve the lessons for you, so it becomes clearer. Obviously, this will be also published as a podcast, and there will be more videos talking about different examples, how we apply shallow work versus deep work. So to make things even more clear, because we know it's all about subtleties. It's now that we shared our personal experience, how we implement in our system. And this is what we see in the chat as well, where Michael says, love the idea of separating different work types, categories to different apps. So that's what we talked about, Todoist, Sansama, ClickUp, and obviously our calendar as well. Then John says, powerful session. Michael says, hi, John, another wake-up call. And Mary says, definitely a session worth rewatching a few times. So guys, this is really nice. And here's something I think we can tackle in the next session then, because we run out of time now. Michael suggests, so working on the Eisenhower matrix might not have always been a good idea. So he refers to the urgent plus important and important not urgent, etc. In ICOR, we simplify things so everybody can work based on common sense. Eisenhower is based on common sense, if you like. It makes all the sense when you think about it. But the moment you apply this on a daily basis, this is where you really see then how much friction these things actually bring. And that's where ICOR is really based on business-proven experience, right? We experience this in our businesses. Thousands of other members have applied this in their businesses. And we refined this all based on this and kept removing things so it really works. and people don't get overwhelmed. And it makes it so powerful to then run out in a whole team, because it gives you the clarity, it removes the anxiety, and so on. So certainly something that we can talk about next time, why we just use urgent instead of urgent, important, and things like that, because everything that is important to us is already every task that we have planned out, because every task based on ICOR and the output formula and the output elements, every task is tied to a project, and a project is tied to a goal. So everything that we complete moves us towards our goals. So with this, I want to end the session, guys. I'm really excited that we got so much engagement in this chat, and we cannot wait to catch up next time.